witches? So today we're going to talk about one of the most frequently asked questions in the witchcraft community, and that is, I'm brand new, where do I start? So I've created a lesson plan that's going to help you build strong magical foundations. It's going to go through all the fundamentals, and it's going to bring you from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 in the way that I think is most helpful to building your magical ability. So eventually, at the end of this lesson plan, you'll be able to craft and cast your own spells. So I'm going to be looking down at my notes and actually reading off of my notes. I might stumble over my words because I'm trying to get through this kind of fast. It's a lot of information. But all right, here we go. Also, this isn't going to cover anything necessarily religious or pagan. It does touch upon the Wiccan Ridi, but I think that's good for anyone interested in witchcraft to look upon, just because, I found a lot of wisdom in it, even though I'm not Wiccan. So, all right, here we go. Step 1 is ethics and safety. You are going to want to research a lot of philosophy before you even attempt to cast a spell. Just so you have a good idea of what it means to be magical, what magic is, and how to use it, you know what I mean? So this is what I have in my notes for ethics and magical safety. Magic is a powerful force. Before you ever cast a spell, gain a respect for its power. Research how to use it responsibly. Research the repercussions of magic. Spells gone right and spells gone wrong. Concentrate on your morals. How will you use it? Why would you use it? In what situations is it okay or not okay to use magic? Everyone has different opinions and stories. Join online groups and ask experienced witches what their magical ethics are to gain some perspective. Learn the dangers of magic and how to properly protect yourself when using it. And this is important, this next part. Learn the critical thinking process before casting any spells. An example would be, how could this spell affect my life or the lives of people around me? Will this spell potentially hurt someone or put me off course from where the universe is trying to take me? Will I be ruining my own or someone else's spiritual growth with this spell? Really, really, really think about the repercussions before any spell, guys. And later, when we get into incantations, we'll talk a little bit about some fail-safes that you can add to your spell to make sure people aren't going to get hurt. So research each one of these, guys. This whole lesson plan should take you a really long time to get through 100% because there's just so much information with each topic. So that being said, the second topic is key concepts. And this is just a few. Really look into the philosophy of witchcraft, but some good topics to research here are as above, so below. This is a concept that represents things in the energetic plane affect things in the physical plane. I think it also touches upon the microcosm and the macrocosm in all things, right? The next is the witch's pyramid, which some witches use this, some witches don't. Personally, I do. This is a set of concepts many witches follow as the philosophical fundamentals of witchcraft. It is to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. Next would be the Wiccan Ridi. Not all witches are Wiccan, and not all Wiccans are witches. However, the Wiccan Ridi is useful to look into. It contains many positive ethical ideologies as well as concepts of witchcraft, including the threefold law, which the threefold law is a very popular one. It's the idea that whatever you cast out will come back to you 3 times. Almost a sow what you reap type of ideology. Then look into the law of attraction. This is a concept that states we control our realities with our thoughts and This is a concept that states we control our realities with our thoughts, and I believe this is a good foundation to beginning to understand the mechanics of manifestation. Next is intent and will is magic. All the ritual items and tools are not necessary for magic. So what will or intent is basically our energetic thought patterns going out like a ripple in a pond and affecting the world around us. And this goes back into as above, so below. So look into that. So now you've studied philosophy, you've gotten a good idea of what your morals are, what your ethics are, and your understanding of magic. So meditation is the next step. It is the foundation of magic. A big part of witchcraft is being able to quiet your mind to be able to access a trance-like state, which many people consider to be the alpha state. There are different types of brain states. There's alpha, theta, and a bunch more. Look into all those. Those are pretty cool. Meditation also helps you relax before spiritual work to help you release any thoughts or energy that may interfere with your casting. Learning to meditate will help with learning to focus and visualize, which is a necessary component to casting. Check out an app called Headspace if you have never meditated before. It has pretty good meditation training that they do daily. And it really takes away the pressure of like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to think of anything. Why am I thinking of things? And it really just teaches you and guides you to meditate the right way. So you're going to want to continue to work on meditation forever. Don't ever stop meditating. It's super important to witchcraft. I think it's super important to your health and your well-being too. So once you have a good feel for meditation, go on now into energy manipulation. Harnessing, charging, and releasing energy is a huge part of magical work. You'll want to be proficient in this for many reasons. All things are energy, and tapping into and changing this energy is how we bring about change in physicality. Energy manipulation is in its essence enchanting. Learning to work with energy also allows for us to heighten our psychic abilities by being able to read and feel this energy. Using your skill in meditation, your senses will become more heightened to the feeling of this energy. When you meditate, try to feel your own bioenergy, and some people know this bioenergy as your aura. Next would be doing energy ball or psi ball practices. Basically what that is you gather energy between your two hands, and when you put your hands together, energy is going to naturally flow there. It's just what happens. I can't really explain it other than that. But you kind of feel until there's resistance and just concentrate and try to push that energy into a ball. That is a really brief explanation of it. There's information on it everywhere. So look into that. Research how a healthy diet and exercise affect your bioenergy supplies. This is super important, especially like in Western society. I live in America. We eat such a crap diet and we're always tired. If you don't have like physical energy, trying to push your intent out and cast spells is going to be a little bit more difficult. So get fresh air and eat well, because we get chi or prana from the air that we breathe and the food that we eat. So eat good fresh foods and get exercise and fresh air, build your body, all good things. So again, with energy, we're going to be looking to grounding techniques for the first time. Grounding is something you should do before every single spiritual ritual or working that you're going to do. It just helps get you centered and get you ready to, choking on my words here, but essentially it centers you. It's the act of giving your energy to the earth and also receiving energy from the earth. A lot of people like to ground themselves outside with bare feet in the dirt. And I think there's actually science that backs it up. Like we lose a charge or something when we touch bare dirt. Look into it. So now you've gotten meditation, visualization, some basic energy work down. Now we get to start learning about witchcraft. So learn your correspondences is next. Elemental correspondences. The elements are the metaphysical building blocks in which reality is made. Each governs certain aspects of life. Each will offer you specific wisdom. Each aid in spell work in different ways, all of which is widely understood to be part of the basic fundamentals of witchcraft. Some witches work mainly with the elements, and they are elemental witches, but an overwhelming majority of witches find them essential or at least very important to magical working. Next would be moon phases. Moon phases are so important. They dictate which magic is strongest at what time. As above, so below suggests that the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. So our own energy will match the energy of nature, essentially. So you want to follow nature. Next would be the days of the week. Each day of the week has a different metaphysical aspect to it, and harnessing the energy of the day of the week can help you in planning to cast your spells. Like, say if you wanted to do a self-love spell and you followed the Norse pantheon. I believe Friday is the day of Freya, the goddess of love and war. So you would do that magical working on a Friday, perhaps. The next would be seasons, Sabbats, and the wheel of the year. As we are in tune with nature, it is helpful to have an understanding of the way nature and the seasons flow. You will begin to notice how they correlate with your own psychological and magical cycles. Next is astrological correspondences. These are planetary correspondences. The planets and stars hold distinct powers and have a better understanding of them for planning, or to have a better understanding for spell planning, you should be aware of them. Next is magical color correspondences. This is important for enhancing your own magical work later on. Each color has metaphysical aspects to it, as everything does on this correspondence list, and it will help you build energy and the right kind of energy to cast your spells. So next would be herbology or plant correspondences. Now this is a big subject and you're going to study this for the rest of your witchcraft career. It doesn't end. There are so many herbs and so many plants and they all do different things and they all can be utilized. So begin to get an understanding for some key basic herbs, maybe some rosemary, thyme, sage, cinnamon are all really popular herbs to use in witchcraft. Crystal correspondences, same thing with plant correspondences. This is a huge subject. You're going to study this forever. There are so many different types of crystals. They all do different things. Some key ones are probably rose quartz, quartz, amethyst, tiger's eye, perhaps, things of that nature. So now we have an understanding for our correspondences. The next would be symbols. There are many magical symbols from many different faiths and practices. Gaining an understanding is key so you have the option to utilize them in your craft. Now, there are way too many symbols for me to list, especially with how fast I'm trying to go through this, but just a couple main ones are the pentacle. This is one of the most popular magical symbols among practitioners. Do the research on the history of the pentacle, as well as what the symbol represents and how to use it. The pentacle is related to elements, and also look into, there are different ways to draw the pentacle, and each has a correlation with its own element and whether you're banishing or invoking. So look into that. The next would be the elemental symbols. Each element has its own symbols, and there are many symbols from many different cultures for the elements. I know a lot of witches use, it's like the different elements are triangles. I know the Japanese have their own symbols for the elements. So look into all of that wherever you fall on the witchy scale. Everyone's different. Next would be the spiral. This is the symbolism of growth and connection to nature. And we find the spiral in a lot of places in nature. One thing I can say is check out the documentary literally called The Spiral. You can find it on YouTube in a couple different parts. I'll link it in the description if I can find it, but it basically just goes through and explains how the spiral is in nature and what it means for us. So, sorry, I lost my place here, guys. All right, next would be the Triskele. This is a Celtic symbol, and it's the triple spiral. This symbolizes basically the same thing as the spiral, I suppose. I didn't write notes in it. I thought I did. I'm sorry. Dropping the ball. But the Triskele, it's spelled a little funny. It's Triskele. Triskele. The next would be the labyrinth. I also didn't take notes on that one either, but it's the journey within. So just to touch on some religious symbols, you have the triple goddess, the horned god, the spiral goddess, the wheel of the year, and there's so many more, but I also didn't include notes on them because they were religious symbols. So now we have an understanding of our correspondences and useful symbols. So now we're going to get into the different types of magic. Now, there's this huge trend going on where everyone is picking what type of witch they are. There is even a type of witch for a witch who does not want to pick what type of witch she is, and that is eclectic, and that's what I am. But this isn't talking about that. This is talking about the types of magic, and there are many, 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 many types of magic. They're not all going to fit on this list, but they also, most of them fall under the blanket of the ones that I do list. So don't just stop at this list. Google and read and research as much as you can about any type of magic that you can find. So research and look into. Oh, and I should also give credit. I got this list of the 8 basic types of magic from wiccanspells.com, I believe. Yes, wiccanspells.com. So, oh, yes, and also just to cover some good ones to research that fall under these 8 are candle magic, sigil magic, poppets, potions, dream work, and knot magic. But the 8 main types of magic are high magic, low magic, divination, sympathetic magic, talismanic magic, folk magic, elemental magic, and petition magic. So, okay, if you didn't realize with the last step, I kind of trailed off and I didn't give a lot of descriptions after that point when I started writing this out, just to kind of make the video go a lot faster, because I can cover most of this in separate videos too. So this is just kind of to give you a lesson plan on what to research. So I'm not going to tell you what everything means. So now you've researched the types of magic, and number 8 is time to research magical tools. Now, let me just go ahead and say that the magical tools are not magical unless you consider them magical. It's the intent of witchcraft. It's your intent that casts a spell. The tools help you focus your intent, right? You can cast spells and be a proper witch without ever having a single magical item. Now, I'm going to say it's really fun to use the magical items, so you're probably going to start collecting a lot of them. But at first, don't worry about it, because you can still be an effective and an efficient witch without not a single one. So just some magical tools for you to look into is the Athame, the cauldron, a wand, the besom, bells, chalice. There are so many that you'll find in your research. So moving on, number 9 is protection. Now we're getting close to casting our own spells. So you're going to want to have a really good idea of protection magic. So smoke and incense cleansing is a popular option for clearing out negative energies. I know white sage is a very popular option. There is a lot of talk about whether white sage is cultural appropriation or not, so you're going to want to look into that. And also Palo Santo, I think that's what it is. It's endangered, and I also believe that is in the realm of cultural appropriation, so it's probably best not to go for Palo Santo. The next is circle casting. I think this is mainly a Wiccan ideology, but they cast a circle to protect those within, keep negativity out of the circle, and also I think it's almost like a canister for energy to raise the cone of power. So you should look into your deity and how your deity can help protect you. Energetic shielding. If you're an empath like me, energetic shielding is going to be the only way you can go to the grocery store without having a meltdown. Basically, and this is why energy work is so important, you raise your energy, you feel all your bioenergy, and you like make it almost a shell around you, a hard shell that deflects everyone else's energy. Now it's going to take some practice to do this effectively. So even if you're not an empath, do this all the time. Do it once a day when you wake up. Put your shield up. So definitely look into shielding techniques, because there's many different techniques on how to shield yourself. Warding. Putting a ward over an area is basically just having a protection spell in that area. My house, for instance, I do a warding spell every single month with the full moon. You might want to ward around your circle if you're out in the wilderness or outside, things like that. So now you kind of have an idea of protection. And now we're going to get into divination, which is almost a form of protection in and of itself, because before you cast a spell, you want to do some divination, because that's part of the critical thinking process. You want to go ahead and connect to the divine source and get their opinion on what you're doing and how it's going to affect your life and what it means for you and the people around you. Divination is connecting to a divine source to get guidance. So you're going to want guidance in your spell work and outside of your spell work too. It's important. I do divination every single day. I love my pendulum. I might be addicted to my pendulum. So some methods of divination to look into are the tarot, which I think is probably of the most popular. They are cards that are fashioned after, I believe, Renaissance era playing cards that people used for divination. You have oracle cards, which I believe are kind of a newer take on tarot cards. They're a little bit more specific. The pendulum, which I mentioned, is it can be anything. Actually, my first pendulum was a ring with some thread, which I believe is a very Italian method of doing it, of the strega, the Italian witches, which I'm Italian and I'm a witch, but I don't know if I necessarily follow strega. I don't know. Scrying and runes. You're about to find out a lot about my heritage. I'm also Scandinavian, and while we're at it, Celtic. But the runes, just to make a side note, and I'll make a video about this, but they have been so watered down by society that if you're going to study the runes, You need to read the prose and poetic Edda. You need to get a good idea of ancient Scandinavian culture. You have to look at them like a historian would, because there's a lot of these Pinterest pictures where they have like a 3-word definition of the runes used for divination, and you can't sum up a rune in 3 words. They are literally what the Norse considered to be the building blocks of reality. The tarot has an order to it in the major arcana, and it's called the Fool's Journey. And each card represents the next step in the journey of the Fool, which is the card 0. It's your starting point. The runes are much the same way. They have a story to tell as well on how you advance through life from Fehu to Otala. You get an understanding of what the Norse believed to be the path of progression. So my rune rant is over. If you're going to study the runes, please study the runes with all seriousness. So that was just a couple methods of divination. Honestly, there are so many from so many different cultures. You want to look into them all, but be respectful of whatever culture you're pulling from. So the next is spell construction. We're here, guys. You're about to start writing your own spells. So research the components of different kinds of spells to start to formulate your own. With all you have researched and practiced this far, you are ready to put it all together. Spells can be very free form, or they can be very structured. Writing your own spells helps put your own energy into the work, as well as allows you to cast in the way that fits your needs and unique style. No 2 witches are the same. We are all very special snowflakes, and a spell that might work for me might not necessarily work for you or your style, so writing your own spells allows you to cast how you want to cast. And if anyone ever tells you, oh, there's a specific way to cast spells, be very wary of them. Be very wary of know-it-alls. This whole lesson plan is a guide that, I think is step 1, step 2, step 3, taking baby steps to building up your ability in magic, but you don't have to do everything exactly as I said it on this list. I just think it's a good study guide. Magic is very free form. Study what you want to study what interests you. So back to spell formation. Sorry, I digress. Look into incantation writing. Now, incantations can be anything from a poem to chanting. A lot of people think it has to rhyme. It really doesn't have to rhyme. The most important thing with incantation writing is you need it to be specific. Very, very, very specific. Because you don't want to mess up. You don't want to accidentally, for example, my favorite example is casting a prosperity spell and you didn't add harm to none at the end, and you killed grandma but inherited her inheritance. So you gotta be careful here with your words of power, because they are powerful. And look into the different types of spell formation. There are so many different spells, and they're not going to be formed the same way. Like, doing a candle magic spell is going to be kind of different from doing a sigil magic spell, and you could even mix those 2 types of spells together. So definitely this goes back into researching the types of magic. But I have here a basic guide to the formation of your spell. So, number 1 is consider your intent. What are you trying to do? What is the end goal? Begin thinking about the process, or begin the critical thinking process. Sorry guys, I told you I was going to stumble over my words. Begin the critical thinking process and conduct a divination check. Choose timing to complement your intent, moon phases, and perhaps the day of the week. Now, I don't always consider the day of the week for my spells, but I do consider the moon phases, and I've noticed that it really does make a difference, at least to me in my craft. But you have to experiment and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Next is choose the type of magic. So are you going to be making a talisman? Are you going to be casting a candle magic spell? This is the time to figure out what kind of spell you want to do. Next would be to pick out the herbs, crystals, incense, and colors that will amplify the energy of your intent. Just for a side note, these should be cleansed and consecrated before you use them in any type of magical working. And I'll do a video on that eventually, but you know, this is my second video, so we gotta take it one step at a time. And the last step is write a clear and precise incantation. They don't have to rhyme, like I said. They just have to be specific, and also use fail-safes like and harm none for protection. And harm none is super important. I know it's more of a Wiccan ideology, but if you really want to not harm anyone, you should definitely add that. So this is the end of my study guide. This study guide should keep you busy for a very, very, very long time, and some of it doesn't stop. So hopefully I can be a help to some of you just starting off, or even if you're a experienced witch, you know, maybe I'll give you some new ideas, which is pretty cool. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and happy casting, guys.